And now he's filled with regret and guilt over John the Baptist. Verse 13 says, when Jesus heard it, he hears the news about John, he departed from there by boat to a deserted place by himself. But when the multitudes heard it, they followed him on foot from the cities. Now, Jesus, remember, was cousins with John, their family. And when he receives the news about John, he goes by boat to a deserted place by himself. Jesus got alone with the Father. Jesus often got alone with the Father to pray. Mark chapter 1, verse 35, it says of Jesus, now in the morning, having risen a long while before daylight, he went out and departed to a solitary place, and there he prayed. In Luke 11, the disciples came to Jesus and asked him, teach us to pray. Teach us to pray. Not teach us how to pray. Teach us to pray. And listen, this is the only thing that the disciples ever asked Jesus to teach them. They never said, teach us to do miracles. Teach us to heal people. Teach us to proclaim the gospel. No, the only thing they ever asked Jesus to teach them was teach us to pray. The disciples realized that the key to Jesus' power and his ability was his prayer life. If Jesus often got alone with the Father to pray, how much more do we need to spend time alone with the Father in prayer? Look at verse 13 again. Jesus tried to get alone with the Father, but the multitudes followed him on foot. The Sea of Galilee, as you know, is small. The crowds could see Jesus from shore. They could see where he was sailing to. And so they just walked around on land to that location. From Capernaum over to where Jesus sailed to is only about 4 miles by foot. And so the crowd just followed him on foot. In fact, as you read this, the crowds were waiting for him when he made it to shore. Look what it says. When Jesus got out of the boat, he saw a great multitude. And he said to the multitude, can't a guy just have a few hours alone? Don't you have some other place you can go? He didn't say to the crowd, hey, this is me time, or I'm on vacation, or I'm taking a personal day. Come back tomorrow. Jesus came to serve people. He came to serve people. And we see here, he put the needs of others above his own needs. Something we should all do as disciples. Even though he's grieving, even though he wanted to be alone with the Father, he saw the multitude of people, and it says he was moved with compassion for them. Mark's gospel says because they were like sheep without a shepherd, and he healed their sick. He ministered to them. Even though he had his own needs, and he's just trying to get alone to grieve and pray, he ministered to others while grieving. It's a good example for us. When you're grieving, minister to others. A lot of times I think when we're grieving, we think, I need to take a break, I need to take some time away, I need to work on myself. Minister to others. Minister to others. Verse 15 says, now when it was evening, his disciples came to him saying, this is a deserted place, and the hour is already late. You got to love the disciples. What would Jesus do without those disciples? How else would Jesus know that it was a deserted place and the hour was already late? If it weren't for the disciples telling him that. Jesus couldn't figure that out on his own. And so look what they say next. The disciples encourage Jesus to send the crowds away so they can buy food in the surrounding villages. Now look at verse 16. But Jesus said to them, they don't need to go away. You give them something to eat. You see what Jesus did right there? He just commanded his disciples to do something that was impossible for them to do. They can't feed such a large crowd. It's impossible for them. Now, John's gospel tells us that Jesus turned to Philip in particular. And he asked Philip where they can buy bread for all these people. Now, why does he ask Philip? Philip was from the village of Bethsaida, and they're near the village of Bethsaida. And Bethsaida was famous in that region for its bread. And so Jesus says to Philip, hey, Philip, you're from around here. Where can we buy bread for all these people? You know what Philip did? Philip got his calculator out, and he started making all the calculations and said, even if we had 200 denarii, 200 days' wages, a year's salary, we couldn't feed all these people. There would not be enough bread to feed all these people. Lord, it's impossible. Lord, I've run the numbers. Here's my spreadsheet. I've put together a PowerPoint for the group so that I can show you how there's no way we can feed all these people. Send them away. Now, here's the thing. Listen, give me your attention. God, you know this if you've walked with the Lord for more than 5 minutes. God will often call us to do what is impossible for us apart from Him. He's constantly doing that. He will command us to do something that we don't have the ability to do or the skills to do or the resources to do, where it's not even close, where we're woefully inadequate and unable and ill-equipped. And the disciples, to their credit here, they try to come up with a solution. Look at verse 17. Verse 17, and they said to him, well, we have only 5 loaves and 2 fish. They surveyed the crowd, and they came up with 5 loaves and 2 fish, which is not even going to put a dent in the need here. And so verse 18, he said, bring them here to me. Then Jesus commanded the multitudes to sit down on the grass. Note that, on the grass. The picture here is of a shepherd feeding his sheep on the green grass. Psalm 23, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me to lie down in green pastures. Jesus Christ, the good shepherd, He has them sit down in the green grass. Now, the other Gospels tell us that He told the disciples to have everyone sit down in groups of 100 and in groups of 50. Everything Jesus does is done decently and in order. It's not chaotic. It's not pandemonium like Walmart on Black Friday. People aren't pushing and shoving here. It's decently and in order. That's how He always works. And then He commanded the multitudes to sit down on the grass, and He took the 5 loaves and the 2 fish. Looking up to heaven, He blessed and broke and gave the loaves to the disciples, and the disciples gave to the multitudes. Now, this is a wonderful description of Christian ministry.